this is our final installment for the Allspark. We're going to learn how to decorate the edges. This is actually the trickiest part. There's a lot of details in it, so let's get to it. First thing we need to do is we need to change our document properties to make the size of our workspace match the size of the laser cutter. So to do that, we go to File, and then I'm going to come down here to Document Properties, and I'm going to change the width from millimeters to centimeters. I'm going to change the width to 30, and the width to 60, and the height to 30. That's the size of the bed for the laser cutter. And I'm going to say Enter. I'm also going to change the snaps. So what a snap is, when you get two objects close to one another, the two objects will, their corners will snap together all of a sudden. And if you keep that as a really big number, you'll find that all your objects, when you start getting them close, will just start snapping to each other. It's really frustrating for me. I don't like that, so I'm going to set this low. You set it to whatever you want and see what you like. Okay, so now I'm ready to go. This is the size of my laser cutter bed, so all my parts need to fit on here, or I need to use a second sheet. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import my DXF file that I just made in Fusion 360. So I'm going to come down here to Engineering. I'm going to go to Fusion 360, Allspark, and DXF files. I'm going to do layer 1. Notice my 58.3, so I'm going to remember that number as well. And I'm just going to say OK here. Everything, leave it the way it is. It'll take a second for it to pop in, and now it's in. And you can see this thing is huge. Like, it's way bigger than it's supposed to be. Now, in Fusion 360, I measured the distance from the top to the very bottom. It's supposed to be 58.3. And right now it is, it's in millimeters to start with. So let's change that millimeters to centimeters. Instead of 58.3, it's 140. So it's almost 3 times bigger than what it's supposed to be. To size it to the right size, I'm going to click on this lock here. And what that does is, when I make the height shorter, it's going to make the width shorter as well. So it's going to bring them down together. Unlocked, if you notice unlocked, watch what happens. When I grab this corner, I can actually just shrink in one direction or the other. I'm going to Control Z to undo that. With this locked, it shrinks together. I can't put it out and make it all weird and squeezed. All right, so I'm going to undo that as well because I'm going to be right by start. And I'm going to say this should be 58.3, and notice it made the width smaller as well. Now it's the right size. So I need to actually make this ready for cutting. And our laser cutter uses red lines to say we're going to use full power at low speed and cut through the object. So I want to make sure I make the lines red. And in Inkscape, lines are called strokes. So I'm going to go here to Stroke Paint. If you don't have this, you can come up here and find it wherever it is. One of these will have a fill and stroke option on it. Oh, there it is right there. Fill and stroke under Object, and it'll pop up this window. Under Stroke Paint, I'm going to turn it all the way red. So I want 255, 0, 0, 100. Make sure those numbers all do. You have 254 here instead of 255. The laser will act like it has no idea what you're talking about and won't cut. It's got to be a 255.00 for the laser to actually cut. Then right now it's hard to see the line, so I like to come here and change this to 0.4 millimeters, or just some number that, doesn't matter what number you choose, just some number so you can clearly see the lines. All right. So that's all ready to go. Those are my parts. If you do that and you rotate the screen around in some weird way, the way to fix that is down here. So the way you avoid it is I hold down Control, push down the center wheel, and it spins the whole thing, which is awful. If I come down here, I can change this in the lower right-hand corner back to 0, and it'll put things right back to where they were. All right. To zoom in and out, I hold down Control and I use the roller ball on the mouse. But either you've done this before or you'll figure it out one way or the other. All right. So now what we need to do, we've got our little T here for our Allspark. We need to get the graphic for it. So I'm going to head over to my good friend Google, and I'm going to just type in Allspark drawing and see what that gives me. I'm going to click on the Images tab and see, and right here is the one I'm looking for. Okay. So I'm going to click on that one, get the biggest one I can right there. It looks great. I'm going to right click on that, and I'm going to save image as. And I'm going to put this image in my, so I'm in Engineering Fusion 360 Allspark Images, and it's right there. So I already got it in there, so I'm not going to actually put it in there, but you would save yours into there. And then I'm going to click cancel. I recommend saving it instead of copying and pasting it, because when you save it, if something goes wrong, you don't have to go re-find it all the time. All right. Next thing is next. So I'm going to go back to Inkscape, and I'm going to go here, File, and Import. I'm going to navigate over to where I was. So remember, I was in the Engineering Fusion 360. Wherever you put it is where yours will be. This is where mine is, Allspark, and I'm in the Images folder in there, and I'm going to grab this flattened one and double click on it and insert it in here. Okay. So that's my graphic. The only problem is that if I try to use it this way, well, just let me show you what it looks like. So, don't do anything I'm doing right now. I'm just going to show you something really quickly. So all I'm going to do is go here, trying to kind of line it up, and then just grow it to be big enough to fit on there, right? Boom, like this. Now, if this all, so then all I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight everything. Again, don't do this part. I'm just showing you this is not going to work. I'm going to group it together, and I do that by holding down the control button and pushing G for Control G. Now notice this does not fit into my laser cutter like this. So I can even try rotating it and see, oh, it's not going to fit sideways either. It's just too big to fit like it is. So what I'm going to have to do is break off pieces of this. The problem with doing that, and now I'm going to ungroup them by doing Control Shift G, is that when I try to break off like just this one red piece, it's just not going to take the picture with it. So the first thing I have to do, and this is where things get a little fidgety, is I've got to take my image of the Allspark. So I'm going to undo, Control Z, a bunch of stuff till I get back to where I was. I'm going to actually have to open up this image of the Allspark and then work on cutting it into little squares and then importing those little squares into here to be able to then use them for graphics. So I've got to get it broken up in little pieces. I can't do that work in this file, or for some reason the laser cutter won't use the stuff. Just trust me when I say you've got to open up a new file. If you don't, you're going to really regret it later. It's going to look like it's going to work, and then the laser just won't do it. That's been my experience. I don't understand it. So we'll just do a file, new file, totally new. So I've got my new Inkscape open. I don't need to worry about the size of this because I'm just using it for one little purpose here. So I'm going to go File, Import, and I'm going to find my Allspark image that I'm using. I'm going to insert it in here. I'm going to put it right there. It doesn't really matter where you put it though. Okay, now I need to figure out how big each square will be. So I'm going to come over here and grab my rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a rectangle. Now mine draws right away as being a red rectangle with no fill. If you wanted to change any of that, so say for example your rectangle ended up being black to start with. Well, black is a terrible color because it's hard to see on the black drawing. So what I would do is I would just change my stroke. So I would highlight the thing I want to change, so that's my square. And I want to make mine green so I can see it really stand out. Now I can see it really stand out on my Allspark image. Let me zoom in a little bit in case you can't see it. And I'm going to just try and resize it until I get something that looks like it's probably the right size. It isn't the right size, but we'll figure out how to get it just right later. So I think that's probably pretty good. See how it's kind of on that shoulder there and on that shoulder there and on those two edges. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste this square 5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for each side. So I'm going to highlight the green square, do Control C, Control V, and then do that one, and it's going to paste it wherever I have my cursor. So I'm going to put my cursor here and do Control V there, and then position it. It'll just see how it snaps to the corners. That's that snap we were talking about. And then Control V there, and that one snapped. Control V there, and then whoops, Control Z to undo that resize, and just drag it down. If you make a mistake doing any of this stuff, just undo and redo. Okay, And now we can see some things that we just learned. First of all, the square is too small in the up-down direction, because notice how we left a bunch of the thing off. It's not going to be perfect, but we want to get it better than that. In terms of left and right, it's not actually that bad. Like, it's a little extra here, not quite enough here. So let's take a look at our top thing. The other thing we know is we want it to be perfectly square. Like, we don't want it to be a rectangle. So we want to make sure these two numbers are exactly the same number. So the left and right was pretty good. Maybe it could be a little bit bigger. So the width I'm going to change to 69. Yours may be a little different. I can't guarantee it's the same. But if I make this one 69, I've got to make this one 69. I'm going to hit enter. Then what I'm going to do is go back and I'm going to highlight all these other squares. I can do that by drawing a box around all of them. And notice how if I partially overlap, like this square at the top is only partially in my box, that means it won't select it. It has to be all the way in or it won't select it. So notice if I let go right now, the top green square and the bottom green square, neither of them are totally inside the box, so they don't get selected. Only the middle ones do. So when you're selecting an Inkscape, either it's all in the box or it's not in the box or it doesn't get selected. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to delete all those green ones because they're all the wrong size. I'm going to bring this one up a little bit to kind of reposition it and get it to where I think it looks pretty good. I think it looks pretty good. And now I'm just going to go Control C, and then I'm going to try and paste one right back in all those places again to retest to see if it works. So this is just trial and error until we get something that works. And now having a big snap distance of 20 centimeters is really nice because I do want them to snap pretty aggressively together. Right there. So one thing I noticed is that they look like a pretty good size. Notice how like they're right, but they're just all a little low. So I'm going to highlight all of them. I think actually I got the picture on that one as well. So maybe I'm going to hold down the Shift key and click on them individually because I think I'm getting, oh, it's going to be hard to get that middle one. No, maybe not. So I'm going to just try it again. I'm going to try and grab, well, how about this? I'm going to grab those and then I'm going to grab this one afterwards. So you figure out how you can just grab just the green squares. I'm going to use the arrow key on my keyboard to just position all of them to where I feel like I've got the best position possible. It won't be perfect, but I'm looking for the best position possible. And I think I'm digging that. So now I've got it all laid out. And you might be thinking, well, why don't we just do all that? Well, here's why. We can't, in Inkscape, you don't crop a picture like you do in other programs where you just grab the size and shrink it down. You cut a piece of a picture out by first drawing the shape of the picture you want and then using the shape to cut the picture underneath. So what we've done basically is laid it out so that we have the 6 pictures that we want to cut out. Now, the other nuisance is it'd be nice if we could cut them all at the same time, but you can't. So what you have to do is cut each one at a time. We're going to start with this top one and then go to this left one, the middle one, the right one, the lower one, and the bottom one. That's how I'm going to name them. That way I know which one's which. I've got to put them on my Allspark in my the other file in that order, or they won't line up when I put them together. All right, so here we go. Here's how you do it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this top one, and that's, well, not yet. I'm not going to do that yet, actually. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete all the lower ones, just temporarily. Now that I know everything fits in it's right, I'm going to delete all those green ones. I'm going to click on the green one that's left, and then hold down the Shift key and click on the picture behind it. So now they're both selected. I'm going to come up here to Object. I'm going to go down to Clip and Set. So when you think of cropping a photo to make it smaller, it's not called cropping in Inkscape, it's called clipping. And so watch what happens when I hit Set. It clips away the green square and keeps only the image inside the green square. So I'm like, okay, that looks great. But now I need this as a image that I can use on my Allspark. So to do that, I have to export this. So I'm going to go File, Export PNG Image. That's going to open up this nightmarish looking, terrible looking little dialog box. I'm going to click on the picture I want to export. And notice how it switched over to selection here. That's what I want. I'm going to leave all this alone. I don't want to mess with all this. I don't want to mess with any of this either. I'm going to go to export as. And this is where I tell Inkscape where to put the picture. I'm going to put this in engineering. For me, it's Fusion 360, Allspark, and then images. Make sure you make a folder for this. I've already created mine, but here I would say, well, I'll just do it again. Top 2. And then I'm going to hit save. Now, here's the really confusing thing in Inkscape. I hate this about it. You actually didn't just save the image. All you did was save where you're going to put it. To actually put it there, you've got to take one more step. You've got to click export. Export. Now I've actually saved that file. If you move on before you hit the export button, you won't have saved the file. It's very confusing. I hate that about it, but that's how it works. Now, I got to get back and get my image back. So all I do is push Control Z once, twice, I've got all my boxes back. I'm going to repeat that process now for the left side. So I'm going to draw a bounding. I'm going to drag a box around all the ones on the right, and I'm going to delete those. And then I'm going to go up here, I'm going to select my left one, hold down Shift and select my image. I'm going to go up here and go to Object, Clip, Set. Now I have that image. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to come down here and do it Export As. And another frustrating thing is it doesn't remember where you last exported. So every time you've got to tell it new, where did you put it? Oh, I put it all the way here in the Images folder. And this one's going to be the left one. So I'm going to say left 2. Doesn't matter what you call them as long as you know what you call them. Save. All right, so no, I have not saved the file yet. I just saved where I'm going to put the file. To actually put the file there, I do export. It's one extra awful step. I don't know why they do it that way. Okay, so I'm going to Control Z twice to get my green squares back. Now I want to keep the middle one. So I'm going to click on this one and hit delete. And delete that one, delete that one. Then I'm going to highlight these bottom 2 and delete those 2. I'm going to click on the picture and the green box. Hold down the Shift and the green box. Object, Clip, Set, and there's my next one. Boom, highlight it, selection, export as. Again, find where you export it. For me, it's engineering, super repetitive, Allspark, images, and this one I'm going to call middle. And because I've already done this once, I'm going to call it middle 2 so I don't overwrite my old file. I'm going to hit save. That's the image I'm going to put in the middle. Okay, great. That one's done. So Control Z twice. 3. Actually don't need that other green one, so I'm not going to actually bring it back. I'm going to bring it back. I'm going to bring them all back. That way, if something goes wrong and I need them, they'll be there. You know, trying to recreate everything. Okay, now I need to do this right-hand side one. So I'm going to do the exact same thing before. I'm going to highlight all these green ones on this side, delete them, highlight the green box, the picture, object, clip, set. Uh-oh. I'm going to Control Z because you know what I did? I never export. I can see here that it still knows what I'm doing. I never actually exported the middle. So, nope. Which means I have to go back and redo that work. That's frustrating. So I'm going to delete everything but the middle one. And then I'm going to go and clip this again. I have to redo what I did before because whoops, let me highlight them first. Object, clip, set. And then I've got the export in the right place, middle 2. I have to actually export it this time. So now it's been exported, so now I can undo twice, 3, 4, 5 times. And now I'm going to do this one on this side. So I'm going to highlight all these green ones on this side, delete them, highlight everything. So now I'm highlighting everything with just dragging because there's only 2 things left. And then go to Object, Clip, Set. I've got my clipped object. Export as. engineering. And one thing I like to do as well is when I get here, I'm going to actually check to make sure I have all of them. So I've got left 2, middle 2, top 2, and now I'm doing right 2. Okay. So if I was missing one of them that I thought I'd already done, I know I have to go back and redo it. It's super frustrating. Save. I have not saved it yet. I've just saved the location of it. And then export does save it. So make sure you hit the export, or like me, you have to redo stuff. All right. Now I'm going to highlight all the top 3, delete those, highlight, whoops. When I make a mistake like that, I just press Control Z and it goes back to where it was. I'm going to highlight the bottom one, delete that, and then I'm going to go highlight both of them, object, clip, set, and then go here to export as engineering. I told you this was the hard part. Fusion 360 and Allspark images. And for me, I called this one lower to save. Now remember, I just saved the location where I'm going to put it. I haven't actually exported it yet. Now I've exported it. And then Control Z a couple times there. And then I'm going to delete all the ones on top. And highlight the remaining 2, object, clip, set. Now I've got that one, export as, and I'm going to put them engineering, Fusion 360, Allspark, images. And then I'm going to say this one is bottom 2 and hit save. Woo, doggy. I have actually finished the export of all of those. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to Control Z. I'm going to undo it to where I have everything back to where I was. And then I'm going to save this real quick. File, save as. I probably should have saved it right away, right? So Allspark image. Going to give it some name that'll help me find it later if I need to. Save. And that's all good. I can close this now without having to lose any of my work. Boom, done. Okay, now we've got to take all those little pieces we just cut apart and we've got to bring them into this file and do what's called a bitmap to them and then apply them to our Allspark. First thing I want to do is I want to separate this into its pieces because right now it's all one thing. To do that, I'm going to click on it, hold down Control, Shift, and G for group. The Shift, like Control G is group. Control Shift G undoes the grouping. So one does it, one undoes it. Okay. Now that they're apart, notice I can move one and not the others now. So I'm going to leave them this orientation though, because I need to know which one's top, left, right, middle, bottom, and which direction they go. So right now I'm going to go to File. I'm going to do Import. And I'm going to find the top one. I'm going to do that one first. And I'm going to use the top 2. I just had those. Open that. Now I'm going to, before I size it, don't want to size it right now because right now it's in this what's called a raster graphic, which means it's a lot of little dots. So if I zoom in on this, notice how blurry it gets. And it's like, oh, that looks terrible. Like I can't zoom in much. The same thing happens if I try to make it get bigger. It'll just get blurry around the edges. I'm going to convert this from what's called a raster to what's called a vector graphic. And a vector graphic you can zoom in on forever and it will never get blurry. So it's better for using a laser, I think. Okay. To do that, I'm going to go up here. I'm going to select my object. I'm going to go up here to Path. And I'm going to choose Trace Bitmap. Okay. And then I'm going to try this 0.45. I'm going to hit Update. And it looks terrible. Like that doesn't look like this at all. So what it's doing is anything below a certain threshold, it's good. Well, so let me explain a little better than that actually. So right now this picture is full of anything from black all the way down to really light gray to white. What this trace bitmap does is it converts it every little thing, it converts it either to white or to black. So there's only 2 colors when we're done. There's no gray colors left. So what it needs to do, it needs to say, okay, so where do you want to have that cutoff at? Do you want all the gray things to turn to black And if so, you make this number really high. So a really high number here of like 0.95. I'll update that. It turns everything that's even slightly gray on this picture into black. If you want only the really things that are really close to black already to stay black and everything else to go white, you set this really low, 0.1. Update. And there's not even anything on there that looks like it's already really dark black. So the higher this goes, the more of the grays are turned to black. So I'm going to set this threshold somewhere nice and high. I'm going to set it to 0.65. Let's just see what that does. Update. And that looks kind of interesting. So I'm going to say OK. And notice it just drew it on there for me. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see it a little better. So that's what I got. Now, one thing I notice here is that I'm missing some detail that I want. So I want more of the gray to turn to black. So I'm going to increase this. I'm going to try 0.7. So 1.0 is like everything goes to black. So it's all in decimals now. And then I'm going to make sure I'm clicked on my image before I hit OK. Then I'm going to hit OK. It'll make another version for me. So I'm going to pull this off. And I'm going to be like, oof, OK. So to me, this one does look a little better. I like there's a little bit more detail starting here, but maybe I'm not quite done yet. But I'm going to delete this old one because I like it less than my new one. I don't want to keep like 12 of them on there. I won't know what's going on. And then I'm going to go here and go 7.5. I'm just going to keep ratcheting it up. Click back on the image I want to do, and then click OK, and it puts it right over the top of that one. And now I pull this one off, and I'm like, ooh. Yeah, I think I like it. It's starting to get a little dark over here. So I'm not a big fan of, see how it's starting to get kind of muddled over here? So I'm not sure about these two. Let me go up, I'm going to go up to 0.85. I'm taking a bit of a jump here. And then hit back on my picture, click on my picture, and then click OK. And now this one is too muddy. I don't like that I've lost all mine. This is just going to be your taste. Like, what do you want to have more detail on or less detail on? I don't like having this be so dark here, so that's too far. And I think this one, for my taste, is too far as well. Yeah, so I'm going to keep this one, but it's whatever setting you want. I think that was the 0.7. That's the one I'm going to use for everything else now, is that 0.7 mark. You don't have to, you can use something different. Now that I have this, now watch this. As I zoom in on this one, notice how gray and blurry it gets. You can't really even, oops. You can't really even see what's going on. Let me zoom back out. But if I zoom in on this one, now it's like it never gets blurry. It stays perfect forever. And also notice here that all the different colors of gray there are, all that's gone. All I now have is either black or white. That's it. Okay. So I'm going to delete this. I'm going to zoom out so I can see my Allspark. This is the top piece, so I'm going to put it on here like up at the corner like that, and then drag it to be the size. And once I get, like, say, the width correct, I'm going to be like, all right, yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. And I want it to be on the little tabs as well, because I want it to look like it's wrapping over on the thing. So I'm actually going to make it a little bit big. If anything, I'm going to have it so that it overlaps the tab a little bit bigger than the actual red thing as well. And now, just to help me line it up really well, I'm going to drag a box around both of them. That'll highlight both of them. I'm going to go to the menu up here that says Object, and then Align and Distribute. Right down here at the bottom, Align and Distribute. Click on it. It'll bring up this menu, or this over here. Once I highlight both of them, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to center them horizontally. So I'll actually show you what it does. If I have them, whoops. If I have, just say I have them like this, if I highlight both of these and I say center horizontally, it centers them this way. And then I say center them vertically, and it centers them that way. So now they're perfectly centered on each other. And now I'm going to hit Control G for group. Now they're one group, so when I move them, they move together. So now the top is done. I'm just going to do the exact same thing for the left. So I'm going to move this out of the way real quick because I need this still. Actually, let me close it and I'll show you how to reopen it each time. File, import. I'm going to find left 2. It's that one. I'm going to go here to or path, trace bitmap. Make sure my 0.7 is correct. Click OK. Grab that, pull it off, and then delete the old one. I'm going to put that, whoops, I'm going to put that on here. And then just drag it out. Okay, yeah, it's locked. Drag it out to where it barely starts overlapping like that. Awesome. Drag a box around both of them, and then I'm just going to center, middle, and then Control G to group them. So that's the left one. Now I'm going to grab onto this one. Let me move these, just going to move them out of the way a little bit without changing their orientation, because I need to know which one's which. I can't just randomly put them on there or they won't fit together in the correct way when I'm done. Okay, so close this, file, import. I'm looking for the middle one now. So I'm looking for middle 2 right there. And I'm going to go to path, trace bitmap, click OK, drag it right about there-ish, pull it about like that. And it's not going to line up perfectly anyway, but so as long as it's close, it looks actually pretty good. So you don't have to worry about trying to be like, oh, it's got to be perfectly in the middle and perfectly sized. You can actually get away with some. Go middle here and middle here. So those are good. Control G, that one's done. Now I'm going to go to File, Import. It's just doing it over and over again now. And I'm going to go right, open, path, trace bitmap. Just keep doing it over and over again. Delete the old one. So just close this window. Try your best to line it up. Drag it out. That might be a little bit big. Yeah, I think that'll be good. And then using the Align tab, I'm going to do a middle line, a middle line. And yeah, that looks perfect. Okay, and then I'm going to Control G to group them. And now I'm doing the lower one now. So File, Import, Lower, perfect, Path, Trace Bitmap. Okay, and off it comes. Just like that. About like that. And then I'm going to center, oops, let me highlight both of them first. And then I'm going to center and center. Control G groups them. Delete the old one. And the last one, yay, last one. The rest is easy now. And now we're going to go to import and we're going to do bottom. Oops, it's at the top. Of course, the bottom's the top. I don't see bottom 2, did I not? Oh, I never saved bottom 2. But luckily I have the bottom from my first one. Otherwise, I have to open up my file and redo it. I hit save, but then I didn't hit export. So that was oops. Okay, so hopefully you caught that mistake when I was doing it and you didn't make the same mistake I did. Okay, so, oh, path, no, object. And no path. I'm getting a little loopy tonight. And I'm the 0.7, and I might actually bump this one up a little bit because I don't like the way it looks. A little too fuzzy on this one. Update. Yeah, I'm gonna try that. Okay, and see what it looks like. Delete the old one, close this window, highlight both of them, do a middle, and then group those. And yeah, I think that looks pretty nice like that. So now I'm just going to put them on there. I don't really care what order I put them on, but I'm going to need to get them pretty close together. So I'm going to let them snap together. And then I'm going to put a tiny bit of spacing. I'm going to show you some tricks about the align. So here I'm going to go, I'm just going to click on this lower one. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I use the left arrow 10 times to move it away, 10 little spots. And now watch what I'm going to do. This part's tricky. I'm going to highlight all of them. And I'm going to come over here, and this is the distribute one. So this means to like move them apart from each other. And this one says to distribute them with the same distance between them. These two on the right two have no distance. This one has 10. So when I click on this, it evens them out so that they're 5 and 5 on each one. So it's a fast way to organize things. I also want to line them up vertically with each other, so one's not higher than the other. So I'm going to either do the align top or the align bottom, depending on what I want to do. Sorry about that. And now I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to come here, I'm going to put this one here, and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5. 5 ups to move it up a little bit. And then I'm going to come here and attach. That one's going to snap. This one's going to snap. And I'm going to go. Actually, what I might do is I'm going to align this one with the bottom one. So I'm going to highlight those two. I'm going to do an align center. And then I'm going to highlight these 3. And I'm going to do a distribute horizontally and an align top. Just like that. Now I'm going to highlight all of them, square all of them, and hit Control G to group them. I'm going to try and place them the best I can right in the middle of the page. And now we're ready to print. So I'm going to save, I should have saved this earlier. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to save it as Allspark cut lines. So Allspark, that's how I like to call it. You can do it whatever you want. As long as you know what it is, everyone is happy. Save. I'm going to replace it with this one. Okay. And now we're ready for laser cutting on this thing. So good job if you hung in there this whole time. You're amazing. And I look forward to seeing it done in real life. Have a great day.